I know I say all the time, don't move anywhere for a man, but also don't let him move for you. I'm really sorry. I know that's maybe depressing to hear, but that's why I think most long term relationships are doomed right out of the gate. So I've made a lot of videos of why you shouldn't move somewhere for a man. And obviously, there's exceptions. I know exceptions. It does work out sometimes. But in general, because of patriarchy, if you move to another place for a man, especially if you emigrate to another country for a man, you have a whole system working against you. And even the language alone, if it's his language, you're screwed. It's his in-laws, you're screwed. His country, his culture, everything is there to protect him and center him, and you're going to get screwed. And if you have children, you are stuck forever. Those kids cannot leave without his permission or it's kidnapped. But let's talk about why you shouldn't let him move for you. It'll work out sometime. First of all, most men won't do that. They don't move for women. They expect us to be the sidecar, not the motorcycle. So most of them are not going to do anything to decenter themselves and uprooting their entire life to go somewhere else for a woman. Most men have egos too big and too fragile to ever do that. But if they do, you have to be careful, because one of the things that you're going to run into is a man who is completely dependent on you. And we know now that something that is just as dangerous as a woman being too dependent on a man, especially financially, is a man being dependent on her, because he's going to weaponize that like maternal instinct or whatever. It's going to weaponize your empathy and the way you've been conditioned under patriarchy to like baby men and center them and coddle them and, we make sure you pacify the baby. They're going to weaponize that. And even if they are not going to do that and have no desire to do that, but aren't really good at living on their own and like taking initiative, and if they're not really good at making friends and creating community, they're going to be one of these dudes who's totally dependent on you. And instead of having a partner, you have a child. Even if he was so independent and had his own life back there is a chance he's not going to do all that work in the new place. So you're kind of like a stay-at-home mom on some level. Because all of the paperwork stuff, he probably won't do it, because we know men do the whole weaponizing competence and just like don't do things that we have to do it. So you're going to be doing all his paperwork. You're going to be going, to deal with the immigration stuff all the time, especially if he's not fluent in your language. You're going to be paying for a lot of this. You're going to spend hundreds of hours of dealing with immigration. Y'all know I wrote all this research about men not having friends and how much of a burden it is on women when they do not have community, and especially good friendships with men who will actually show up for them, not men that they go play their little hobbies with, and not men that they go drinking with, but I mean men who know about their lives, who care about them, who are going to show up for them. If they get injured, if they get sick, men will help them with their emotional lives, because all of that shouldn't fall on you either, right? Like show up kind of friends. Men who don't have that, they burden women with all that. And we know how hard it is to make friends, especially as adults. It's already hard when you actually speak the language and it's your culture. And even if you know people, like even, it's hard enough to make friends when you actually live somewhere for a while. Imagine going to another country, another culture, and if there's a major language barrier, you really think men are going to make friends there? Like it's going to be 10 times worse of men being friendless and lonely and you being the person who has to deal with all of that. And they might be super depressed. And we know that depressed men with no friends are a nightmare. God. But again, if they have not been deconstructing patriarchy, they're eventually going to fall into a shame spiral, because they're dependent on you. Even if they don't want to be, they are. And a lot of men cannot handle that, and they will start to resent you. They will hate you for the choice they made. They will hate you for having the upper hand in that relationship and for being, this person who their immigration status is tied to, right? So even if they want to leave you, they'll stay with you, but they'll just make your life hell. They'll probably cheat on you too. They'll drain your bank account. I know this sounds so depressing, but that's why I really, in general, I believe in love. I wouldn't be married if I didn't believe in love. But you got to be really smart and practical, y'all. And you really need to know these men. If you are doing long distance and only seeing each other for like 2 days at a time, a week at a time, you don't know that man. I did long distance with a French man for a year. I did not know that man. I did not know that man. And a lot of these dudes love to have long distance girlfriends, because that is somebody that can just, a booty call that can just come into town, they have fun with and then go away and they can keep living their life. And a lot of these men who have long distance relationships actually have girlfriends or multiple girlfriends. So if you have a long distance relationship, you better spend a lot of time with that person. You better spend a lot of time in his environment to see how many friends he has, how active is he, what's his, work social life balance like, what's his apartment look like. All kinds of things are going to tell you a lot about his character. And then at the end of the day, you still don't know him. But when you tie immigration to the danger inherently involved in women dating men under patriarchy, you tie immigration into all that, you're multiplying all the possible problems by like 10 or 20 or more. Because when the stakes are so high, it's going to create a power imbalance. And if you don't have an evolved man and a man who's actively working on himself, that power balance will destroy your relationship. And a lot of men, because more than we would really understand, a lot of men are bums. So many men just don't want to do anything. They just want a life where they don't have to do anything. And immigrating to another country where they just don't have any friends and they don't know the language and, it's hard to find a job, it's going to be real easy for them to slide into being a full-on hobosexual. And those guys will ruin your life. And they'll also ruin your financial security, maybe indefinitely. Be very careful. In theory, love is a great thing. But in reality, a lot of love is not love anyway. It's exploitation and codependency, but it isn't love. It's fantasy, unhealed trauma, and a whole soup of stuff that ain't love. Be very careful, y'all. Don't burn your life down over some dude by moving to him or having him move to you. And if you know what I'm talking about, if you have experience, please, if you feel comfortable, share it in the comments, because I know I'm not making this up, but it helps when people share their experiences. Be careful out there.